Dear class, welcome to week 7. In the week 7, we're gonna learn a new software package of Microsoft Office, which is Access Module 1, Introduction to Databases and Database Objects. Alright, so we did successfully complete the Excel. So we did learn Excel Module 1, Module 2, Module 3 and the capstone. So this week and the week going forward, we're going to focus on Access software. It is one of the packages of Microsoft Office, right? So before we get into the project part, since most of you are not aware of Access, I'm gonna talk about Access a little bit. So talk about what is the database and what are database objects, and then we'll come back to working with the project. All right, so let's get started. So this module focuses basically on the databases and database object. So just an introduction, right? Module 2 and Module 3 focuses on advanced skills of Access, right? So in the slide number 2, I have a video that talks about the difference between Excel and Access. So I would like you to complete the reflection, which is right here, by watching a video. So you can do that after you finish the project, right? So basically what it is that in the Excel we can have list of numbers or list of characters are combined together. We actually create a visual representation of charts based on the data that we put into the Excel, but we cannot really establish a relationship among list of items, right? So that's why the Access gives us not only ability to store, it gives us ability to create relationship among the data that is being stored, right? So that's the main difference. So you have the ability to create a relationship, and you have ability to search the item very quickly. You have the ability to enter the data more sophisticatedly, and you have the ability to create a report, right? So all these are features of Access. The advantages of Excel is that it gives you a lot of inbuilt formulas and functions to work with, right? But there is no way to define the relationship among the list of items. So we can have as many sheets of data that we like in Excel, but there is no relationship among the list of items. All right, that's the main difference of Excel and Access. And let us understand what is the database. So Access, a database is nothing but collection of data stored on a computer, okay? So a database is nothing but collection of data that is stored on a computer. So the Access is a software that is used to manage this data, right? So Access is a database management software. The database can have many tables in it. Tables are used to store data in the databases. Like in Excel, we store the data in the cells of Excel and in the worksheet, right? So the format of how Access stores the data is quite different than Excel. So it stores the data in an object called as table, all right? So we store the data in an object called as table. Now table has two things in it. One, it has many fields in it. What is a field? A field is a label that we give to identify a data point in a row, right? So basically, if you think of a regular table, we have columns and rows, right, in a table, but the columns are called as fields in a table and the rows are called as records. All right, so here are more properties about a table. So what is a table? So Access has 4 types of object. All right, the first object is the table, second object is the query, third object is the form, fourth object is the report. So we have about 4 types of objects here. Table, oops, wrong place. Table is one type of object, query, another type, form, and report, right? So Access has these 4 types of object. Now let us explore each one of them. So the table object is used for what? To store the data in the form of records. So each record has many fields in it in the form of columns. So rows are called as records, columns of a table are called as fields. Okay, the records are actually the actual data, whereas field is the label that we give for our data, right? A table can have as many records as we want, and then in a table we have something called as primary key. So what is a primary key? A field, so in a table we have fields, so a field that uniquely identify a record among all the records in a table is called as primary key. So given these, among these 4 objects, so Access gives us many views to work with it. So the table has 2 views in it. The first view is called as a data sheet view, and the second view is called as design view. Data sheet view is the default view of a table, and design view is used to change the table structure. So what is the structure? We will have all the fields, and then each field can have many properties in it, right? So those are called as table structure. So once we work on the project, you will get into the details of how these 2 views work, right? The second object of Access is called as query. Now the data is stored in a table. Now what is the use of query? So query is used to ask a question to a table. So let's say Salem State University has a database, that means collection of data stored in a computer, for example all the student information, right? Salem State University, let's say, has a database that is in charge of storing all the data that is related to students. So we might have a table called as a student, wherein the fields could be first name, last name, email address, the actual address, city, phone number, and so on and so forth, right? In the student table, you can also have there is also SSU ID number, right? So each one of you have a unique identifier, which is SSU ID number. That's called as the primary key, right? So likewise, like the student database has like a student table, or we might have a table called as courses, we might have a table called as grades, we might have a table called as tuition, we might have a table called as so, but among these tables we can establish a relationship. Once you have the relationship, retrieval of data becomes a lot easier, and there is some meaning to it, right? So when it comes to query, so let's say in my class I want to know how many students are enrolled in my class, right? So how do I know? So I ask these Salem State database to give me list of students who enrolled in ITC 117 class, right? So that is called as query. That means data is stored in a table. The way I retrieve the data is by creating a query. That means basically you're asking a question to a table. This is what I want, give me that information, right? So once Access runs this query, it's going to pull the data on what you actually want, right? So it is created based on one or more table, and the output is the data that matches your condition that you're going to put in your question. All right, so the query has 3 views: data sheet view, design view, and SQL view. Now Salem State may not use Access database. It might use Access database is used for our smaller businesses where the storage capacity required is very, very small, whereas Salem State University, we have thousands and thousands of students who are coming in every year, and Salem State University need to keep track of all the students that went to Salem State from the year that it started, right? So for that, we do use a database which is more sophisticated than Access, which gives more storage capacity, so which is called as Oracle or Oracle database. All right. So, but for the scope of this class, know that Access is a database management software. You can also store data as well as manage, analyze it, and connect the data within the databases. Right. So that's the beauty. So table, store the data, query to ask a question. And the next object is the form, right? So what is a form? Form is an object that is used to enter data into the table. So you can also, it is also created using one or more fields, based on one or more fields, and it shows one record at a time, so user can type in the data into the database one record at a time. So it also has three views: form view, layout view, and design view. Okay, so then we have the last object is our reports. The report is used to create a presentable notation of the data, right? So data is stored in a table. Like, how do we create it in such a way it's more presentable and readable for a business level, right? So in a report, in addition to having the data, you can also have headers and footers. You can also have page numbers. You can also have different formatting, color for the text, and so on and so forth. So report has 4 views in it. So report view, print view, layout view, and design view. So we will work with each one of these views when we work on the project, right? So know that Access is a database management software. It has 4 types of object in it. Table is where we actually store the data. The format of the table is in the form of fields and record. Fields are your columns, records are your rows in a table. Query is a way to ask a question to the database to pull the data that you want. Because all the data is stored, you need to tell Access which data you want to pull from the table. Then we have form. It is used to enter data into the table. Then we have a report. It is used to create a presentable form of a data with all the formatting, headers, footers, and page numbers, right? So that's the summary of introduction to databases and object. Now, when it comes to naming tables and fields, we need to follow certain rules. So note that the name that we come up with for a table or field must not have any spaces. It should be single word. Even though our table name might have 2 words in it, we're not going to put a space to separate 2 words. All right, so we're going to make each first letter of the first word uppercase, first letter of the last word uppercase, and no spaces, right? The maximum length of table or a field name can have is 64 characters. That means 64 alphabets in it, and it can contain letters, digits, and spaces, but it's not recommended to have spaces in there, as well as most punctuation symbols, but it cannot contain a period such as dot, exclamation mark. You cannot have these symbols as the name for a table, right? Each field in a table must have unique name. That means if you take a table and you declare 2 fields such as first name and last name, I cannot have 2 fields with first name in it because it needs to be unique. Why store duplicate data? So if I have one field with a name, first name, then that is more than enough. I don't need to have same field name again, right? So that's why it says fields in a table must have unique names in it, right? So next, when it comes to table, so we saw the primary key, right? So there are some properties to that. So it is a unique identifier. So field can be like a ID, Salem State, SSU ID number, and so on and so forth. It can be auto number field, which is basically when you set a record, if you set it as an auto number, for first record, it will have a data value 1. For the second record, this ID field will have a data value of 2, and for the third record it will have ID data value as 3, and so on and so forth. That's the auto number. It will increment the number as we insert more records, right? So when it comes to data types for the fields, so we need to tell Access what type of data that we're going to store in each field, like similar to Excel, right? For a cell, we usually, if it is a number value, we format it with a number style, right? For such as accounting, currency, and so on and so forth. So same thing goes for Access. For each field, you need to tell Access what type of data that you're going to store. So these are the commonly used data types, but there are many. We will know that once we work with Access. So short text, number, currency, date, and time, right? So these are the commonly available data types here. So next, when it comes to database design process, your first task is to identify tables, right? So when it comes to designing your database for your own business, so you need to identify what are the main entities that I want to store. So when you take up a student database, so the main entities that you're dealing with is student, faculty, courses, grades, and tuition, all of this, right? So these are like main entities. Identify them, determine the primary key, add the additional fields, and then establish a relationship between the tables, right? So this is the beauty of using the database. That means using a database versus Excel. Assign data types to the field, and then identify and remove any redundancy. So almost end. So now the Access software is not available in Mac laptops. I'm sorry if you guys are using Mac. So as I listed in my syllabus, we know from day one that Access software is not available in Mac. Honestly, I don't know why they don't make it for a Mac version of Office, but we do not have Access software in it. So your options are to use Windows-based PC. I would recommend use the library computer or borrow a Windows-based laptop from your friends. Alright. So in the Access Module 1 project, we will learn the following skills. So first we will explore Access window, and then we will create a database, and then we'll create a table, add records, and so on and so forth, right? So we will create a query, form, report, and we will also learn how to import data from Excel into the Access, and so on and so forth, right? So that's the introduction that I want to give you about Access, right? So let's get started with the project. Save. So I have posted the PowerPoint here for you guys if you want to refer it later. So we are in week 7 module. I'll post this video right here. So let's get started with Access module 1. So for this week, there's only one project that I want you to complete, and then complete this reflection on this project. Since it is new, I would like you to answer the questions in the discussion board so that everybody can benefit from each other. So go ahead and get started with Access Module 1, SAM Project 1, click on it. And as usual, we're gonna create a new folder for this project. So in here we have instruction file and Access files. So this is a file name, starting from SC all the way until the dot. So this is called as file name, and then from the dot up to here it's called as file extension, right? So all the Access files will have a file extension called as .accdb. ACC stands for Access, DB stands for database, right? So like Excel has the file name from here to here, and then extension XLSX, right? So that's the file extension for all the Excel files. Likewise, for PowerPoint, it will be different. For a Word document, it will be different. So for each program, it has got its own file extensions. That means when we create a file using that program, it automatically adds the file extension so that your operating system will know which program to open the file that you are trying to open, right? So there is an association of a program name with a file extension. Okay, so in this project, let us download the instruction file and the start file as well as the support file. So let us go to our folder where we have, I think mine is in the Dropbox, teaching online. So in here, this is my project folder. Create a new folder. Browse to your location also in your laptop. Access module 1 project. Okay, select that, save it, and let us download our start file. Save. Oops, I want to save it. Save, and then I'm going to rename this number 1 to number 2. Save it, and then I'm going to download my Excel file. So this is a support file. It has some data in it, so we'll just download it. Now let us open our instruction file. And enable editing, restore down button. So let us open our start file, access file, restore down, again enable editing. Okay, so let me bring my Word document here. Alright, we did do getting started, right? So let us follow the steps here. The theme of this project is West Coast Outdoor Advertisers, right? So the goal is creating and modifying a table and other database object, but basically the data that we will be working with is the Outdoor Advertisers company. It's a West Coast outdoor company, right? So as you can see, let us explore the access buttons here for a minute before we get started with the project, because it's new to you guys. So in the file tab, we have options to create a new blank database, or I can select from all the available templates. So that means I can use a database for nutrition tracking, I can use a database for customer service, I can use a database for event planning, I can use a database for students. See, all these templates are already given for us. Depending on what your business does, you can select particular, like a database for inventory, personal account ledger, time card, contact manager, time and billing, vehicle maintenance. So basically, if you select these templates, it does come with its own tables that is already created for you. If you start from a blank, that means we want to create and design our own database from scratch. That's the only difference. But since we are working with the start file, database is already created for us. But if you need to do it, then we'll just do blank database, and then we'll give it a name and then create. It's so easy, right? So just creating a file. So then this is the backstage view. So we have save as option, print option, close option, and so on and so forth. So that's the file tab. Let us explore home tab. So in home tab, as you can see, we have different groups here, right? So clipboard was already there. So we have a new group called as views. And then we have a groups called as records, right? And then we have text formatting right here. Why it is all grayed out? Because I have not selected any of the object. So if I select an object, then some of the options will become visible, you see. And then if I double click on it, then all the buttons will be visible, Okay, so that's how Access works. So I'm just going to close it now because I want to explore the other buttons. So in the Create tab, we have many groups. We will mainly use groups called as tables, and then a queries, and then a forms, and then reports, right? So those 4 objects that we are focusing on. We will not work on macros and code. That's the advanced skill, so we don't need to worry. The next tab we have is External Data tab. So this is a tab that is used to import the data from different files and then export the data. Okay, so you can import the data from Excel text file, XML file, and you can do the export for the same. So you can export from Access to an Excel, from Access to a text file, from Access file to an XML file, from Access to a PDF file. Okay, so you can do the import also the same way. Then we have database tools. So this is a tab that we're going to use especially to create a relationship among the tables. Okay, so that one we will use, and we will also use Compact and Repair to manage the database. Right, so basically that's it. Those are the tabs that are available: Home tab, Create tab, External Data, Database tools. Then we have here on the left side, it's called as Navigation pane. This is called as Navigation pane, and all the objects are actually listed under its title. So for example, these are all my tables and they're listed under tables heading. These are all my queries listed under queries, all forms listed under forms, all reports listed under reports, right? So in the instruction it will say, okay, open billboard table. Then where should you look for? Under tables you should look for billboard, right? So that's how generally it's gonna work. So that's the left side. So what do we have on the right side? So basically when you're working with this object, they open up on the right side window. Okay, they open up on the right side window as soon as you double click it or right click open it. Okay, so we'll follow the steps now so that you'll see how this works. So step number 1 is asking us to create a new table in a datasheet view with the following options. So right now we have how many tables? So grading table, we're not gonna work on it because it's a table for MindTap for grading, and so this is also counted as a table. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables we have. In addition to this, we're going to create a brand new table. So create tab, table button. As soon as you do that, so we got the table 1 here, table 1 under tables. So we're going to create a new table, and by default we get a field called as ID, and then its data type is kind of auto number, right? So our 1A is to rename the default primary key ID. So this is set as primary key because that's the field and that will be unique. But we're gonna modify this, right? So we want to rename the ID. So in order to rename it, just double click on the ID so that we get this black background. That's when we are ready to type our new field. State, and then we want to change its data type. So in order to change the data type, this is a field and this is the data. So you're going to click on this new cell here, and then under fields, table tools, fields, under formatting, right now it's set as auto number. So for state, we're trying to store the state information. For example, we live in Massachusetts, right? So the state name will be what? MA, or we can also expand it to say Massachusetts, right? So in the state field, I'm going to store the MA, and then I can have another field called a state name. In here, I'm going to expand it, all right? So step number 1, 1A is asking us to change the data type to short text. Why? Because by default it's a number. So number, we cannot have it as a state state name, right? So it should be letters. So letters means short text. So that was 1A. We renamed it. We changed the data type to short text, and we want to change the field size state to 2. That means if I need to store MA, that means I only need 2 characters to store it, right? So here is a field size button. We have right now 255, so that means I don't need so many characters to store just MA. To store just MA, that means all the states with just 2 letters, I just need 2, right? So type 2 in there. After that, we're going to add another new field called as state name, and then the data type that I want is the short text. So click on the arrow next to the click to add, and then the first one we want to select is the data type for it, and then we have the field 1 highlighted by default. So go ahead and type your second field name, which is state name. Okay, and this button lets us add new fields, and the view that we are in is the datasheet view. How do I know which view I am in? So you can simply click on these views, and then the one that has a background highlighted, that's the datasheet view. So you can switch between the views by clicking on these 2 buttons. But for now, I want to save this table. How do I save it? You can click on the save button, or I would like to do it this way. I will right click on this table 1 and then hit save. So as soon as you right click on it, notice the options you have. You have the option to save, you have the option to close, you have the option to close all. That means if I have other objects open here, I can close all of them, and then it is also telling us which view we are in. It has a background box there, right? Okay, so our goal is to just save it, and what is the name that I want? States, right? Say okay. So the table 1 replaced with states, and then here also table 1 got replaced with states. Okay, so with the state still open in a datasheet view, which is the current view we are in. So these are my fields in a table. How many fields do I have? 2 fields in a state table. The first field is the state, second field is the state name. How many records do I have? Right now nothing, but I'm working on this record 1 here. So this is a record navigation menu. It will tell you how many records we have, and you can navigate to the previous record, you can navigate to the next record, and then you can navigate to the last record, and then you can add a new record by clicking on this button, right? So for now, let us follow this step and enter these records that are given. So we're going to enter these 4 records in the order. So double click below the state. So this is your record 1. The state name is ID, 2-letter state name, and then the expansion of ID, Idaho. You can press tab, that will take you to the next record, OR, and then R again. So in order to navigate from one cell to another, like basically one field to another, we're going to press tab key on your keyboard, WA. So as you see, this is the menu that's telling which record I'm currently on. So I'm out on 3 of 3. WA stands for Washington, and then tab, WY, Wyoming, right? Now right click here, save it. So we added 4 records successfully to the states table. Okay, now we're going to close the states table. So whenever we're working with an object, and when we are done working with an object, it's always recommended to close that object. That way you don't do any changes accidentally. So, and you'll start from a fresh object, right? So now it's asking us to open add rep table in a datasheet view. So how do you open in a datasheet view? By default, if you double click on the table name here, it opens up in a datasheet view. So in the add rep table, we have about how many fields? So we have add rep number, first name, last name, phone number, address, city, state, postal code. Notice the field names, even though it has two words in it, there is no space. First letter capitalized, first letter capitalized. Same thing applies for all the field which has two names in it, right? So for example, here it has three words in it. So salary and so on and so forth. How many records do I have? So you look at here to tell me how many records, which is seven records so far, right? So in this table, we're going to do some changes. So we're going to add a new field called as date hired, and the data type for that is date and time. And I would like to add this after postal code. That means following the postal code. Okay. So in order to do that, since I need between the salary and postal code, I need a new field. So you can actually click. So basically you need following the postal code. That means you can click on the arrow next to the salary. Oops. So you're going to right click on the arrow next to the salary. And then we have option to insert a field. So it adds the field before the salary. That's how it works. So if I right click here, then it will add a field before the postal code. Since I need it following the postal code, I'm going to right click on this salary, arrow next to it, and then select insert field. Now let us change the field 1 to, just double click on it to change it, date hired. And then in order to change the data type, you're going to click right below the, oops, let me scroll this way. You're going to click right below the date hired, and then table tools, fields, date hired. So right now it's a short text. I want date should be date and time format, right? Hopefully. So we get that calendar right next to that, right? So we just added the date hired field following the postal code, and then we're going to close this object because that we are done working with add rep table. Right click, save, right click, close. Okay. Next we're going to work on billboard table. So we're going to open this in a design view. So in order to open in a design view, instead of double clicking, you're going to right click on the billboard, and then it gives me an option to rename it, import, export, delete, copy, cut, and so on and so forth. But I'm interested in just changing the design view, so I'm just going to select design view. Okay. Now notice how it is different from a datasheet view. So let me open the same table I'm just going to change the view to datasheet. So this is how the datasheet view looks like. We have the fields and records listed. And if I change it to the design view, I see only the table structure. That means I will not see the records. I will only see the field names here and their data type. And I can add additional description for each field if I need to. And as you click on each field, notice these properties down below. So these are the properties that I can change for the selected field. Okay, and you'll also notice this key. This is next to this field name. This is called as this billboard ID is set as a primary key, and the data that we are having for the billboard ID field is unique among all the records. Let's check whether this is true or false. Let's switch to datasheet, and as you compare billboard ID, you will see if you just compare these entries against all these records, it will be unique. You will not see any duplicates in it. Why? Because it is the unique identifier field, and the data, when we are entering the data, since we made it as a primary key, Access is gonna check for that property while we are inserting data into this field. If you are entering duplicate, it'll say, hey, this is a primary key, it cannot have duplicates. You see, Excel will not give you this feature. Even if you have duplicates, it just simply takes it, right? So that's why Access is kind of thinks more like you. It's more meaningful, and it makes it more easier when it comes to maintaining a relationship among the data that you are storing. All right, let's switch back to datasheet view. So that was primary key, and for the scope of the step, we are interested in what? We are interested in doing these changes for some fields. All right, so we want to do these changes on height field. Notice these properties will not apply to all the fields at a time. You need to select one field at a time and then apply these properties. All right, so I am interested in changing some properties for a height field. So how do I do that? Click on the height field, and then here are my properties that are related to height field. So I want to change its data type. So data type is listed here. Click next to the arrow next to the short text. Height, generally it's a number, so we will change it to a number. And then the field size for this height, right now it has long integer. We want to change it to single. And then the decimal places that I'm going to allow for a height value, right now it has auto. We want to change it to number 1. That means I'm going to allow one fractional decimal value. Right, so save. So whenever we change the field size, okay, from 255 to a lower number, we get this message. Okay, we shorted this style, so the data in a database might be lost because we're just saying, we just change the data type from 255 to single value. So you just say yes. So Excel keeps track of all of this and then prompts you a warning when we are doing something strange. Okay, so that's the beauty of database management software. It has a lot of features in it that are actually taken care, underlining, like inbuilt, rather than you worrying about, okay, did I do this, did I not do that. Okay, alright, so that was step number 4. And then step number 5 in this same table, so we're going to add a description for DEC field. So here is my DEC field. So generally people will not know what does DEC stands for, right? So basically whenever you have codes like this, you might want to expand it under description box so that other users will know what this DEC stands for, right? So wherever you have the abbreviations, it's recommended to expand it under the description box. So here we're going to expand it, so you can copy paste it or you can type it. So I'll just copy paste just to avoid any mistyping. So DEC stands for Daily Effective Circulation. So that was step number 5. Moving on to step number 6. In the billboards table till open in a design view, change the field size for location field to 75. So here is my location field, select it, and the field size from 255 you're going to change it to 75. Since we are changing from 255 to 75, when we save it, we will get that warning, do you want to continue? Okay, so I'm gonna save it. So we get that warning, say yes, and probably we're gonna close this. I think we're done working with this table. Close it. The next step is importing the data from an Excel file. Now when you import it, we have three options. You can import to a brand new table, you can append to an existing table, or you can create a linkable table. So in this step, we are interested in appending records from Excel to an advertiser table. Now, whenever you are doing an import from a outside file into an Access table, you need to keep in mind two things. One, let us open advertiser. So notice the field names we have. These field names must match with the headings that you have in the Excel file. Okay, and it also, the second one it needs to match is the order of how fields appear. So that means right after advertiser ID, I must have advertiser name, and then followed by address, city, state, in the order. The order is important, and the names of the fields should match with the headings of our Excel file. So let's just open our Excel file that we stored, we downloaded and saved in our folder, right? So let us open. Another thing you'll notice, since I have my Access file open, so you will see two titles with the same name, but then these two files have one without the lock and the other one with the lock. This file with the lock is called as temporary file. Look at the file size, it's only 1 kilobyte, whereas my actual file has almost 1 megabyte in it. Okay, so that's why when you're submitting your completed file to MindTap, you might want to close your Access so that the temporary file will get merged into your actual file. Alright, then you'll have only one entry to select. Alright, so that's the one that I wanted to point, because I saw two entries there. So let us open our Excel file. So enable editing. So that's my Excel file and this is my Access file, right? So two things you want to make sure. What? The first one is make sure the headings that we have is always in row 1 and the name should match with the field name that I have. So let me just expand this here. So advertiser ID, advertiser name, correct, address, city, state, postal code, and so on and so forth, right? Add rep number. So the name should be correct and the order in which they appear should be correct. So only then import will be successful. Otherwise import will be failed. Now excluding the row number 1, how many records do I have in this Excel file? I think we have about 25 minus 1, which is 24 records, isn't it? Now how many records do I have in my advertiser? Right now there is nothing. Right, so after I import this data from Excel into this Access table, how many records should I expect here? I should expect 24, right? So let's check, let's do this import and see if we get these data into this. All right, so I'm going to close the Excel. If you have it open, close also, and I'm going to close my advertiser table. Do changes? No. So before you import it, make sure you click on this, just single click. All right, just select advertiser table and then we're going to click on external data tab, and then under import I'm going to expand my Excel a little bit. How come I don't have from file, click on new data source from file, and then I have ability to import from Excel, text file, XML, HTML. So let us just select Excel because we are interested in. So this is the import wizard. You need to tell Excel where your file is. So my file is sitting in this folder. So I'm gonna go ahead and browse to your folder where you have your Excel file stored, which is support SC advertiser Excel file. So after you tell Excel access where the file is, then as I said, there are three options here. By default, the first one is selected, which is importing the source data into a new table in the current database. We don't want that. We don't want to create a new table, but we want to append copy of these records to the existing table. So go ahead and select the second option. And as you do that, you need to tell access to which table you want to append to. I want to append to advertiser table. So linking, we're not going to worry about this, right? Say OK. And now it actually the data that you're seeing here. This is the data from the Excel file that you just provided. You see, the first row, since they were labeled, it just treated them as a field, and then we have records. Let's scroll down and see if we have 24 records here. See, we have 24 records, which is awesome. Let's click next. We're not going to do any changes here. We'll just say finish. We're not going to save the import steps as well. Just say close. Now, you don't see anything here, but how do you know that your import was successful? You will know that by double clicking on the advertiser table. That means opening it. Hey, look at that. How many records do I have? 24. Earlier there was nothing, and the data that we got from the Excel file. If you were to type in each record at a time, think about how much time it might take, right? So it's always good to import it and then export the data whenever it's needed. So that was the import option, right? So as soon as you see the 24 record, you know that import was successful, all right? So let us close this and then continue with our steps. So that was step number 7. Moving on to step number 8. Sorry, just wanted to drink some water. Okay, so step number 8 is open the advertiser table in a design view and then make the following changes to the advertiser ID field. So how do you open in a design view? Right click on the table that you want to open, design view. So we get to this window here. So in here, for the advertiser ID, which is the first field, you're going to make these changes. So you want to make this field advertiser ID as a primary key. How do you do that? Highlight this entire field by clicking left side of A, right? That will highlight entire row, and then click on this primary key button here to make it a primary key. So as soon as you see that key icon, that means it successfully made advertiser ID as a primary key, right? Save it. So that was 8A. 8B, change the caption property to ADV ID. So for the same selected field, here are the properties. In here for the caption, you want to add, caption is just the abbreviation of this expanded field. You will see this caption in the datasheet view in the place of advertiser ID. So you just made it short, ADV ID, okay? Do not type the dot, so we're not typing that, right? So save the changes and we're going to close the advertiser table. You can actually check whether this caption came or not by going to datasheet view. You see here, we have it ADV-ID, that's the caption. If you go back to design view, we still have advertiser ID as a field name, but the caption will be visible in the datasheet view. Okay. Alright, so save, close. Alright, some more water. Step number 9 is open the billboard table in a datasheet view. How do you open in a datasheet view? Simply double click on the table. It will open up in a datasheet view. Okay. Navigate to the third record. How do I navigate? So you're going to use this record navigation buttons here to navigate to the third record. I'm at record 1 here. I can use this next record button, second record, third record, right? So I'm in third record with a billboard ID as LHBU01. And then we're going to enter poster as a title for the type field value. So billboard ID, location, city, state, you're going to look for type field for this record. So scroll to the right. So here is my type field, and then this is your record number 3. So the value for the type field for record number 3, the type, you want to put poster, right? Next, you want to navigate to the previous record. How do I navigate to the previous record? I can use this record navigation. So we're back to previous here. In here, we're going to type the value for the type field as digital. Okay. Save it and close it. Right. So that's why it asks you to close each time. If you forget to close it, then you'll have so many tabs here, and then you'll get confused on where you did which step and so on and so forth. So after working on each table or each object, make sure you close it. That way there is no confusion, and then before you start the next step, it's like empty, and then you can open up, right? Step number 10 is to open the billboard listing query in a design view. So far we worked with tables, right? Now we are interested in working with queries. So we want to open this query in a design view. So I can right click on it and then select the design view. So as I said, query is a form of asking a question to a table. Based on that, I can get the output, right? So as you can see, look at the buttons here under Query Tools Design tab. We have a group called as Results. We have a group called as Query Type. We have a group called as Query Setup, and so on. And there is a Show Hide button, right? So these are specific to queries, right? So the one that you are seeing here, the first section, is the tables that this query is using to create a query, right? So we are using the billboard billboard table. From the billboard table, you are pulling the data. What is the data that you are pulling? Billboard ID, location, city, state, height, and anything else. So you can use let me expand this window here so you could see better. Oops, I expanded the axis. I'm going to expand this guy here. And you can use the scroll bar here to scroll to the right until you see all the fields here, right? So basically we are pulling the majority of the fields here. Okay, now so that's your field row. Okay, then we have a table row. For all these fields you have this table name, billboard. Then we have a sort row, and then we have a show row, and then we have a criteria row, and then we have a R row, right? So for a query, right now we're just pulling all this data, but then I can put a criteria here to pull the records based on this criteria. Okay, so we will learn the criteria in the next module. For now, know that this is how the query looks like. We have the tables up top, and then we have these rows for field, table, sort, show, criteria. Now since they are all checkmarked here, when we run the query, in the output, in the results, we will see all these fields, right? Oops. So let's come back to the steps. We open the query in a design view. Next, we are going to add a criterion to select only those records with a state field value of WA. So we will do the criteria in this module as well. Okay, so now that I have all these fields, for the which field? For the state field, I want to add a criteria. That means to pull the records whose state is equal to WA. Now, let us run the query without doing a changes. We'll see the difference later on. Let us run it as is. Now it's pulling the records from all the states we have. Now I don't want the records from all the states. I only want the records from which state? Washington, right? WA. How do I tell give me the records whose state with WA, right? So you tell that. So let us go back to the design view. So you tell that in a criteria, and then you're going to do the criteria. So under criteria row, right below the state field, under criteria row, right below the state field, you're going to click on it to create a criteria. So in here, we're going to use the equal sign. We may not use the equal sign. We can just say simply WA. Usually, I would like to put it in double quotes just to tell Axis that look for this word in a way, right? And press tab. So if you press tab, if you still see WA, that means it is saved, right? Now since I put the WA criteria, let us save the query first, and then let us run it. Now this time I should get only records whose state is equal to WA, right? Look at that. Isn't that cool? Earlier we had so many records, right? So we had all the states records. Now I have only 4 records. Why? Because only these 4 records, the state name is matching with the state name that I provided in criteria, right? So that's how you pull the data. And this is the data it is pulling from Billboard's table, right? So let us go back to the design view. So that was this step, right? So we did run it, we did put the criteria, so we're done with the step number 10. Let us close the query, save, excuse me, close the query. Okay. Step number 11 is to create a query using a wizard. This query was already there, but let us learn how to create our own query, right? So in order to create a query, so we want to notice when as I said, the queries, forms, report, these three objects are created based on the tables. Okay, the tables is where your actual data is saved. These three forms are kind of a representation. That means it's gonna pull the data. You will see the data in here as a result, but they're internally saved in the table. Okay, so that's why whenever you're creating a query, form, or report, you need to tell Access which table you want to create from. So in this step here, we want to create a query based on which table? Advertiser table. So for that, I'm going to select the advertiser on the left side. Now create tab. Under queries group, you're going to create query wizard. In here, I have many types of query wizard. I have a simple, cross tab, find duplicates, find unmatched queries, so on and so forth. So in this particular step, which query that I'm interested in? I'm interested in simple query wizard, right? So just click on simple query wizard, say OK. And it is asking what fields you would like. So it's asking us to include all the fields from the advertiser table. So these are all the available fields. These are all the selected fields. Right now I have selected nothing. These are all my available fields. These are the selected fields. Available fields in the table, selected fields that I want in the query. Now if I need all of them, then I will just click on these two greater than symbols to push from available to a selected fields. Push them. You see all the fields came from this available field to this box. Okay, so that's what we want. Save the query as advertiser query, but the default, so we're gonna close it if necessary, right? So hit next. So advertiser query is the default, and then we're gonna hit finish. So that's my query. It ran and then it pulled all the records from advertiser table, and as you see, that's the default name and it is listed under this query, right? Now we're going to close this. Next, for the same table, we're going to create a form, right? So select the same table, under create tab, forms group, we're going to click on this form button. Simple. Now as I said, a form will display one record at a time. How many records do I have? 1 out of 20. The record that you're seeing here is the first record, you see. So we have the field names and then the data. So if you want, we can actually change the data here, and the data will be changed in the table behind the scenes. Why? Because this form is created based on this table. If you change the data in here, the data behind the scenes will be changed in this table. Okay. So click on next. This will navigate to the next record, but it will display one record at a time, you see. So you want to save this one as advertiser form. So just right click here. So in query, it added the query for us, but in the form it will not add. So you want to add that word advertiser form. See, that's our form. So now we're going to close this. Next, there is a form called as add rep update form, right? So we're going to open this. We did that. Step number, oops, let me scroll this way. Alright, step number 13. So we have only 3 more steps to go. Step number 13 is open this form update form in a form view. Navigate to the third record and then we're going to update the address. All right, so let us open in a form view. Right click. I think it give me only 2. That means if you double click on it, it opens in a form view by default. Just double click on it. So this is the form view, and you can check by clicking here. You see that's the form view. So I'm going to navigate to the third record. So I'm at record 1, 2, 3. So in this third record, you want to change the address field. So let me scroll this way so I can see the address. This is my address. I'm going to update the address. Right now I have 9 Shenandoah Avenue. I want to update it to different. Oops. So go ahead and delete all of them, and then I'm going to add 90 Mesa Verde Street. For street, you're going to type capital S T dot, right? So save it, and you can check whether this address has been changed in a table or not, right? So this is based on addrep table. So let us open the addrep, and you want to navigate to the third record and the address field. You see, it has already been updated to whatever we want, right? Whatever we just typed. Yes. So that's how the update form works. Save. Okay. And then we're going to close this form. So step number 14 is to create a simple report. We learned how to create a simple table, simple query, simple form. The last one is create a simple report, right? So we want to create a report based on advertiser table. So click on advertiser, create. So we're going to click on this report button. So that's your report. You see, just a single click. Save the report as advertiser report. So you're going to right click here, save advertiser, and by default it will not add as a report, so we're going to put it report. Okay. Now how is it different than query? You see, it bought the today's date and time, and then it added the background color for the data, and this is the header, report header, and these are the field names here. And as you scroll down, you'll also see total records and then page numbers. You see, that's how the report is. That's how the report is different from a query. Okay, then close the report. The last step, open the IADA warming billboard circulation report. So we're going to open this report in a layout view. So right click, select the layout view. So you want to open in a layout view. Okay. If you have double clicked it, close it and then open in a layout view, or you can change the view from here. Okay. By default, I think it will open in a report view, but you want layout view. If you don't do it in a layout view, it will not let you do changes. Okay, so that's why it's crucial to be in a correct view. So in this layout view, then we're going to modify this report to match figure 1 on the next page by following these steps. So we want to delete type and facing column. Okay, so we have billboard ID, type and facing here. So how do you delete it? So select this column. So basically select this column by clicking on any one of the record, right? So if you click on any one of the record, the entire column is selected, and then hold the control key down and then select any of the values of a facing. Okay, and then release the control key, right click, and then select delete column. Select the data record for type, click on data for the facing, right click, and then select delete column. You see those two columns are gone from the report, alright? So they are gone from the report, but they are still there in the IODA table, okay? So only the report when we create a form called as update form, there is a type of form called as update. When we do that in update form, only then the data will change. If you create a regular form, it may not change as much. Okay, so we just deleted those two columns from the report. The fields are still there in a table, okay, so we shouldn't worry about it. So you should be extremely careful to delete any columns from the table, but all other objects you should be okay, because the data is stored in a table. That's important. If you delete here, you can recreate it. So we just deleted the column headings from the, we did that. So we deleted the type and facing. Change the column headings for the billboard ID column and the DEC column to the headings shown in figure 1. So in figure 1, so for billboard ID, basically we're going to expand it so that it's more meaningful, and it's meaningful for people who are outside of access, right? So billboard, generally we do this in a report. A report is usually viewed by people who did not create the access database, so usually higher management level. So whenever we have a short form, they may not understand, so that's why in the report we always expand it. So this should be expanded as this heading here, right? Daily. So delete the DEC and then type daily effective circulation. That's good. So it's not visible, so probably I'm going to need to do auto fit. Yeah, I just double clicked on this border to make it auto fit. Save it, and then I think these fields are okay, and let me compare. So you might want to add the total field here. That will add the sum of all these entries. I think that should be the next step. So we did the 15B, moving on to 15C. Add the sum values for the DEC column. If necessary, expand the size of total control so that it displays completely. So in order to add sum, so click on the any data value here, and then under design tab here, so here is a totals, you're going to select sum. So it's under group and totals, right? So notice the value is not visible, so you're going to click on it and then use the edges to expand it so that the number is completely visible, right? Save. So click on any data value, and then under design tab of a report layout tool, grouping and totals group, you're going to click on this button next to the total, and then you're going to click on sum, right? Oops, what happened? Let me do undo. Okay, there you go. Maybe it got rid of because I did twice. Alright, so that was 15C. Last one, 15D. Change the report title. Report title is this one. So you want to change it to IODA homing billboard circulation. So there is billboards. I'm going to delete the S and then add it circulation. Okay. save. Your report may display a different date and time that what is shown in the figure 1. So that's obvious, right? So it will show the date and time where you created the report, right? So that shouldn't matter. Save it. And that's it, I think. So we have the figure 1 here and everything else should be sufficient. Let us submit and see how much we score. So as I said, before you submit, make sure you close so that we will get, you see now I have 2 entries here, right? So as soon as you close this, the 2 become 1. That's what you want. Once it becomes 1 single entry, then you are ready to submit. So let's go to Mind tab, scroll down, browse, and select your folder, and that's your file. Open and submit. Assignment submitted. Say OK. Close here. And then 99, which is not bad, but let's see where we did wrong. 1 step, 1 point, right? So as you can see, it will have a report 1 there. Oh, I wish I saved it. Okay, that's fine. Enable content, and this is your grading report. Oops, no. So you're not going to click on the table, but you're going to click on the report down below here. Grading report. So this should give you, scroll down to see where you did wrong. Everything looks okay except change the label in a report. Oh, we didn't do that. Okay, so maybe we misread. Name of the billboard ID to this. I know we did it in the other report, probably not in here. So let's open our file and then report. Yeah, wait, we did do it. Let's check the spelling. Oh, it wants a space after billboard. After billboard, between the billboard and the billboard ID. Oh, we want to open in a layout view, right? If you open in a report view, we cannot edit. Layout view, and then click between that and then give it a space, right? Yeah, because it's a report, we can have spaces here. So close this guy, close this report, Mind tab, submit again, see if it recognizes. Oops. Browse, that's your file, open, submit. So it's still loading. Okay, there you go, 100. Okay, so do try it and let me know if you run into any issues. Alright, so thank you guys. See you guys in the next video. Enjoy your week. So I'll see you next week in the next video. But make sure you guys do write your reflection, because I would like to hear from each one of you, right? So which is right here. So I'll send the announcement shortly. Bye bye.